I didn't sleep the night it started. Our daughter was 8 weeks old and still learning the difference between midnight and morning. My wife, Maya, had crashed on the couch wearing one of my old hoodies, one sleeve pulled over her hand like a child. The house hummed in that thin way houses do when you listen hard. Fridge, air through vents, foundation settling like an animal sighing in its sleep. That I sat on the edge of our bed and watched the baby monitor glow. The camera perched like a small one-eyed bird on the corner shelf in the nursery down the hall. On the screen in my hand, I saw the crib in pale gray. A mobile of clouds and stars hung above it, barely moving. There was a soft halo around the bars from the infrared light. Our daughter, Nora, was a lump of blankets and soft breath. I could hear the tiny wheeze of her nose. The battery indicator was full. The signal bars were perfect. I was thinking about work the next day, about the email I hadn't sent, about bottles to sterilize, about the smell of the formula powder, dry and sweet and chalky. I was not thinking about anything supernatural. The first time it spoke, the room in the monitor didn't change. The shadows didn't move. Nora didn't stir. No doors opened. No floorboards creaked. Just my name, whispered. The voice was dry and right inside my ear. It sounded like the last syllable of a prayer, breath brushing the mic. As if someone had leaned into the nursery camera, pressed their lips to the blank plastic grill, and set it a few inches from the cold diode. Daniel. I froze and watched the gray crib. Then again, closer. Daniel. I felt it in the bones around my ear more than heard it. Something soft pressed against me, then lifted. My scalp prickled. The small hairs at the base of my skull rose. I looked at the doorway of our bedroom and saw only dark. The feed showed nothing unusual. The crib's bars were teeth in a polite smile. The blanket rose and fell. The mobile string turned once, then stopped. Daniel. A third time. A fourth .my name, but not like anyone had ever said it. There was too much space inside the syllables, like the voice had to travel from a distance and stretched on the way, thin and tight. I stood up. My knees shook. I didn't want to wake Maya. I didn't want to say anything that would make it real. That I set the monitor down and walked to the nursery. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. The light from the monitor cast a faint rectangle on the wall behind me, as if it didn't want to be left alone. The night light in the nursery shone a weak, steady amber. The door was ajar. I nudged it with my toe. The air inside was cool. It had a metallic bite, like the room had kept too much of the night. The camera's red eye glowed. Nora slept with her mouth slightly open, a half smile no one taught her. I crossed to the crib, rested one hand on the rail, and watched for a full minute. She didn't twitch. She didn't whine. Just the small click of air in her throat. Behind me, the monitor whispered again from the bedroom, even though I had left it there. Daniel. I turned to the camera. The lens was just glass and nothing. I leaned close. I said, too loud, "If this is Maya, stop. It's not funny." Silence. Then, from the tiny speaker on the camera base, where nothing should come out because it was only a microphone, I heard the faintest scrape. A tongue testing a tooth. Dan, Ale. I pulled the plug. The red light died. The room sighed warmer. Nora fussed once and settled. The house returned to its normal breathing. The mobile swung as if defending her with slow, gentle circles. That I carried the monitor back to the bedroom like it might wake in my hand and bite me. I set it on the dresser and lay beside Maya. I didn't sleep, but I closed my eyes and pretended to. Morning cracked open like an egg. Maya poured coffee with one hand while balancing Nora against her shoulder with the other. Sun slanted across the kitchen floor in long bars, like the crib had come downstairs, like everything in our life now was a pattern of bars and watching. "You look wrecked," she said. I heard something, I said. On the monitor. What? My name. She blinked once, twice, then smiled a tired smile. You're hearing things. You haven't slept. Monitors pick up interference. Baby monitors are basically radios. People talk through walkie-talkies or truckers on CBs or truckers who know my name. Maya sipped. Coincidence. I didn't argue. If I told her the voice breathed through the nursery like a thread pulled through cloth, she would say it was the vents. If I told her the utterance felt private, too clean to be stray sound, she would ask about the neighbors. The second night, it said my name 7 times. The third night, it said my daughter's. Nora. The sound made me stand so fast the bed frame screeched. Maya didn't stir. The voice lengthened Nora's name as if chewing it, as if tasting where it softened, where it thinned. The first syllable was normal. The second dragged, a soft cloth over a wet stone. No, I said out loud, to the screen, to the lens, to the house. I crossed the hall. The nursery was colder again. I could see my breath when I opened my mouth to shush the air. I pressed my palm to Nora's chest. Warm, steady. The camera's red eye wavered, then held. I raised my hand and snapped my fingers in front of the lens. The live feed on the handheld monitor lagged by a fraction of a second. My fingers closed in the dim. Then, through the lag, through that tiny digital distance, the voice came again, perfectly synced to the small rise and fall of my daughter's chest, as if each breath pumped it out of her. Nor, I took the camera off the shelf and unplugged it again. I took batteries out of the monitor. I set both on the floor. I told myself nothing could speak if nothing was alive. Then the monitor, dead in my hands, whispered, Daniel. I didn't tell Maya that part. On the 5th day, the house began to smell like damp earth. It came from the vents, from the carpet in the hall, from the nursery closet when I opened it to get fresh sheets, like soil after rain, like a potted plant cut open. I checked the crawl space, dry. I checked the water heater, fine. I stood in the nursery and sniffed like a dog. When Nora slept, the smell grew stronger. When she woke and cried, it receded, like the house took a breath and pulled the scent back into its chest. I looked up the previous owners. Couple named Hayes. Moved out quickly, the realtor told us, because of a family emergency. Their listing photos still sat in a cavity of the internet like old bones. The same nursery, but with a rocking chair where the crib was now. A bookshelf with spines turned backward for the aesthetic. I scrolled past their smiling faces, their new-build knives, their staged bowls of green apples, and tried to imagine what emergency makes you leave so fast you leave patterns on the carpet where the dresser was. A truck grumbled by outside. The monitor hissed and lifted the hiss into words. Daniel. I set it down on the kitchen counter and turned it toward the wall. By the 7th night. It wasn't only the whisper. It was a click before the whisper, a small metronome. Tick, then breath, then my name, as if something counted time before saying me, as if it wanted me to hear the precision, the ritual of it. I timed it on my phone. Exactly 13 seconds between each whisper point. 13 seconds, over and over, for 3 hours. At 2:12 a.m. The schedule broke. The monitor breathed without the click. The breath filled the room like the inside of a shell pressed to a child's ear. The voice, if it was a voice, came thick, like the mic had been wrapped in a warm hand. It didn't say my name. It said, come. I know what you think, that I woke Maya, that I called someone, that I turned on every light, opened every door, let the night and its cold discharge purge whatever was sitting in our stale air. I stood up and went to the nursery. The carpet swallowed sound. The door swallowed light. The tiny amber nightlight cast a circle on the floor like a coin. The mobile hung perfectly still though the vent was open. I was sure. Then, I wasn't dealing with interference. The house had too much attention. The room's darkness had a weight, as if something leaned from it. The shadows didn't move, there wasn't that kind of show, but I felt the shape of a person in the corner, in the gap between the closet and the wall. I felt someone waiting for me to look. I didn't look. I went to the crib instead. I put my hand on Nora's back. I whispered that I was here. I told her she was safe. I said all the things new parents learn to say to convince themselves they still command the world. The monitor from the hall now said my name in a way I will never teach her to read. Daniel. A pulled thread, a caught fishbone, a sound that knows you by taste. The next morning, when the sun had done its brave act of making the world simple again, I took the monitor to the garage and smashed it open. I laid the tiny circuit board on a towel like a cracked insect. I traced the antenna. I found the mic and unsoldered it, the solder peeling away in a silver thread that looked a little like drool. That I put it back together. Power, signal, video and audio in the middle of the day. While the washing machine thumped, the unit hissed and said into the silence where the mic used to be, "Daniel." I threw up in the sink, quietly, because Maya was in the living room with Nora sleeping on her chest. I needed to test something. I took the monitor to the far side of the house and shut the door. I stood in the kitchen and set a timer for 13 seconds on 12. I held my breath on 13. The voice came not from the monitor, but from the baby's room. Through the wall. Through the thin drywall, the studs, the insulation that still smelled slightly of new house and wood glue. It came from the space above the crib. The air said my name. I went to the door and held the knob and told myself to be rational. To be a man. To be a father. To be anything other than the boy the house wanted. I opened it. Nora was awake and watching the ceiling. Her mouth worked like fish gills, slow, soft. Her eyes reflected the amber night light. The mobile was still. I took the mobile down. I took the camera down. I moved the crib to the other wall, then back. I tried it flush with the window, then centered. The whisper followed. 13 seconds. The voice did not tire. Maya asked what I was doing. I told her the angle of the camera bothered me. She watched me for a long time. Mothers see more than you think. She knows when I lie. She knows when my eyes look like glass instead of eyes. She said, "Should we call someone?" "Who?" "An electrician." I almost laughed. I almost cried. "Sure," I said. "An electrician." The electrician came the next day and found nothing wrong. The vents were normal. The wiring was normal. The monitor was fine. In the baby's room, he stood with his hands on his hips, looked around, and said, "It's a cute setup." "Thanks," I said. I wanted him to leave. The house didn't like him. It crouched around him like a cat that won't show its back. That night, the voice said something new. It waited 13 seconds. Then, hungry. I thought about heat, bodies, small ones that need everything from you every hour. I thought about how Nora's cry changes when she wants one thing or another. The voice was none of those cries. It was an adult's voice pretending to be small, or a small thing pretending to be adult. T3 in the morning. The voice said, "Open." I did not ask open what. The closet door in the nursery is old. The rest of the house is new enough that you can feel the builder saving on choices. But the closet door is heavy and real. When we moved in, I liked it, the way it clicked with a strong tongue. Maya joked the previous owners must have stolen it from a church. The handle is iron and cold all the time. I stood in front of it and knew I would find nothing. I knew I would use the normal words. Boxes, dust, the scent of cedar blocks, and a forgotten baby blanket we didn't know fell behind the shelf. I opened it. The inside of the door was carved, not deep, the kind of grays you see when someone who shouldn't be holding a knife holds one anyway. Scratches layered over scratches. The marks were low, as if made by a child or someone who had gotten tired. Lines overlapped to make confused letters. I bent and held my phone light to them. I saw a D. I saw a long A where it shouldn't be. I saw an N that forgot itself and collapsed. I shut the door. The house seemed to lean forward to watch me. When the whisper came again, it came not only from the monitor or the walls, but from the dark space inside the closet. I felt it in my teeth. Daniel, like a warm cloud. Maya started sleeping in the nursery during the day when I went to work to keep Nora on schedule. It was the only way to survive. She texted me pictures. Baby smiles that weren't really smiles. Sunlight in the shape of the window slanted over the crib and the rug with its patient stars. In the photos, something was always almost visible, a slant of shadow that didn't belong, but only almost. I let myself believe it was just the curtain. I stopped telling Maya about the whispers. She began to speak softer in the house without realizing. We both did. The house liked it when we whispered. Its boards creaked in reply like a big, happy thing stretching itself. On the 14th night, I recorded the audio with my phone. The voice arrived every 13 seconds. When it said my name, my phone's waveform hiccuped and dipped like the sound was a hand pressing on the line. When it said hungry, the frequency graph filled with low bands that the room shouldn't produce. I played it back in the morning. The recording didn't contain a voice. It contained the sound of my daughter's heart. That was impossible. The room was quiet. Nora was asleep on my chest downstairs when I hit record. But my phone, when I pressed play, played the steady thump, thump, thump of a small, working heart. Not from a speaker, not the hum of a fridge, the rhythm of a person who has not been alive long. When the place where the whisper should be arrived, the heart stuttered, as if it shied away, then resumed. I deleted the file, then emptied the deleted folder, then smashed the phone once against the wall and told Maya I dropped it. She looked at me like you look at a car that squeals when you brake. She said we were okay. She said it like a spell. The voice learned our schedule. When Maya napped, it was quiet. When she went to the store, it woke, even if the clock said it was day and the day said there was nothing to fear. It spoke my name from behind the blinds, said hungry from the vent. It said open from the throat of the closet. It said come from the ceiling, right above the crib, as if something lay on the other side of the plaster, stretched flat. A week later, I found fingerprints on the inside of the mobile's cloud, pressed from the outside in. Tiny, yes, but wrong in their angle. I called the realtor. I asked about the Hayes couple. I didn't say why. She lowered her voice, instinctively. I only know what's on paper, she said. They left in a hurry. They didn't ask for their earnest money, which is unusual. Did they have a baby? Her pause was long enough to make the room colder. Newborn, she said. A boy. Where are they now? I'm not supposed to share that. Please. Another pause. They moved back with parents. Out of state. Is the boy? I don't know, she said too fast. I truly don't. That night, I moved the crib into our room. Maya woke while I dragged it and laughed in a small, cruel way only sleep can make kind. Paranoid much? She murmured. But she didn't stop me. She helped guide it through the door. She pressed the mattress down at the corners with the heels of her hands and made the blanket tight, then lay back down and slept with her face toward our daughter. For 2 beautiful hours, there was nothing but breath. Then the monitor, off and unplugged and facing the wall, said from the dresser, "Closer." I stood and moved the crib closer to our bed. I told the house I wasn't afraid. I told the voice to use mine if it needed to speak so badly. I wanted to tempt it. I wanted it in the open. I wanted anything but this aimless hunting. Daniel, it breathed, as if I had proved myself. I lay down. I stared at the light on the ceiling from the street lamp outside. A leaf brushed the glass. When it finally happened, it happened without drama that I woke to the sound of a lullaby that wasn't ours, that we keep music off in our house at night. But from the nursery, the empty nursery across the hall, I heard a thin melody, the kind of tune that comes with a stuffed bear you wind with a key. It was just slightly out of tune. It moved too slow. I got out of bed and made myself walk instead of run. I felt the cool in my mouth. The nursery was darker than it should be. The night light was off. The closet door was open. I stood very still and breathed like an animal. The lullaby wound down and stopped. The room seemed to wait. "Daniel," the closet said. That I saw something then. Not a shape, not a figure, an absence, bent in the space like someone had leaned there too long and bruised the air. The bruise moved, slow, toward me. I reached into the closet, into the colder cold, and touched the carved letters. My fingers came away with dust. The dust smelled like damp. Yes, and something else, faint as a memory of someone's breath when they blow on your face by surprise. I shut the door. The latch clicked. From the crib in our room, Nora made a happy, questioning sound. I went back. "Is tut over here?" I said her name. I said my own, as if reminding the room who belonged to it. From the monitor, almost tender, hungry, I bent and put 2 fingers on Nora's cheek to wake her gently for a feed. Her skin was cold, not refrigerator cold, not air-on skin cold, still living, but cooled like water in a metal cup. I lifted her. She breathed in sudden, startled swallows, then settled. I held her to my chest until heat passed between us again. I took the bottle from the warmer and fed her, watching the tiny movements of her throat. The voice did not speak while she ate. It watched. You can feel that even from things you can't see. The way a room holds itself. The way the air does not stir, as if moving would show intention. When she was done, I placed her back in the crib and lay down without taking my eyes off her to the edge of sleep. The voice said something so quietly I wasn't sure it spoke. "Thank you." I didn't sleep after that. For days, I didn't sleep. I started leaving offerings without telling myself that's what they were. A bowl of warm water in the closet at night. A sliver of bread on the shelf. A piece of cloth I breathed on like a blanket small enough for something that is not big. In the morning, the water was cooler. The bread was damp on one corner. The cloth smelled like the dim place between the walls. Maya noticed I was different. She asked me if I wanted to talk. I said yes and told her I was scared I would drop our daughter when I walked up the stairs because of the lack of sleep. That was true. I did not tell her I was worried I might not be the only one in the stairwell when I carried Nora. That sometimes I felt a nudge toward the rail. That sometimes I saw a hand on the banister that was not mine and not hers. Simply a hand, neutral, watching what hands do. The next time the voice said, "Open," I said no. Firm, like a parent, like a father who could deny. It waited 13 seconds and said, "Please." It didn't sound like me. It didn't sound like Maya. It didn't sound like a child. It sounded like a word made only of longing. I lay in bed and counted my breaths and didn't move. The closet door closed, tapped once like a knuckle on wood, and then was quiet until dawn. I in the little living world of daylight. I told myself the demon word. I used it because it let me believe in an enemy that could be named and beaten, or at least survived. Demon. It felt medieval and stupid in my mouth, but it was better than house, better than nothing. I did not want to search for priests or rituals on the internet. The house would hear me typing. The house would see the words. The house would learn the names we would throw at it. I called my mother instead. Not because I thought she would know what to do, because she prays without making a show of it. Because when she blesses, she doesn't ask permission. She came at noon with a bag of oranges and a small jar of oil from her church. She kissed Nora on the head and placed her palm on the baby's soft hair in a gesture that looked like apology. She didn't ask why I asked. She didn't ask to see the nursery. She took the oil and moved from room to room, leaving a cross on each doorframe with her thumb. When she was done, the house was quiet in a different way. Not defeated, considering. My mother sat at the table and peeled an orange, her fingers clean and careful. "You should keep a light on at night," she said. "If you can." "Which room?" she thought. "The one where you don't want it the most." That night, we left the closet light on. The house did not like it. The floor under the closet hummed like a hive. The monitor stayed silent for the first hour, then whispered my name sideways, like a mouth around a corner. "Dan, A.L." In the last hour before dawn, the bulb in the closet fizzed and popped and went dark. Popped the breaker for that half of the house. At the click of quiet, the voice exhaled relief. I stood up and went to the panel and turned the circuit back on. The closet light returned with a tired yellow. The voice did not speak again until sunrise, and when it did, it said the word like it had been hurt. "Hungry." I changed the pattern then. The next night, I left milk in the closet in a shallow dish, like for a stray cat. I know how that reads. I know what you think that invites. But the first morning after the milk, Nora's cheeks were warmer. The room smelled less of earth and more of dust and the mild stink of our lives. The whisper that night was slower. "Daniel," it said, as if to say, "I see you seeing me. I see you looking at me when the house will not let us look at each other. I see you making yourself small so I do not have to be large." Days later, the realtor called me back in a whisper, like she was in her own house and remembered something the room did not want her to say. Off the record, the haze left because the baby wouldn't sleep unless the closet door was open, she said. I don't know why they didn't say that on paper, but she told me that in the driveway when they handed over the keys. She cried the whole time. "Did anything happen to the baby?" "No," she said quickly. Then, slower, "Not to my knowledge." That night, I left the closet door open by 2 inches. The voice didn't say my name. It said the word again that sounds like hunger as translation, but is maybe just the shape of need. It drifted from the crack like warm air from a bakery door. Our daughter slept. The house rested. Something shifted after that. I began to sense rules, not moral ones, not ones a priest or a salt circle would care about. Rules like, don't look if the house asks you to, don't open all the way, leave a little, speak softly, name what is yours, feed what is not, until it is. The voice spoke less and watched more. I would be lying if I said I didn't begin to talk back. Not with words, with how I moved, with when I turned off lights or on, with how I lifted our daughter from the crib when she cried at exactly 2:13 a.m. one night, because that's when hungry stopped being just a word and became a timing. I in the deep, in the hour between asleep and waking where the house swells to fill the brain, I understood something I could not bear to put into full sentences. The voice did not want the baby. The voice wanted me to want the baby the way it wanted me. It wanted my wanting. It wanted the way my wanting made the room warm. Maybe this is what devils eat. Not flesh, not souls. The tension of love. That I say this because on the night I fell asleep without meaning to, when Maya shook me and said, "Bottle," when I stumbled to the kitchen and returned with a blue ring of formula foam and lifted Nora and fed her and put her back. On that night, the voice said, "Thank you," again. And then very softly, from the closet, in a voice that sounded like mine worn thin, "Good Father." It wasn't praise. It was classification. It set me down in the house where I belonged. It owned the word and let me borrow it. I could have broken then. I could have shouted. I could have torn the closet out with a sledgehammer and opened the walls and made the house show its bones and its rats and its secrets. But I didn't, because the thing I am ashamed to tell you is this. I was relieved. Something in the dark had rules, and it knew me, and it wanted something I could give. Milk, warmth, schedules. 13 seconds turned into 12 sometimes, then 14, then 12, the way a baby does when it tests, then returns. The last night I will tell you about was the night it said my name in Nora's voice. You know how babies sound when they first say anything that might be a word. Everything is breath. The consonants are guesses. The vowels are the whole song. She had not said "de" yet. She had not said any word with intention. At 3:03 a.m. The monitor glowed. The house was holding its breath. The closet light was on. The door was 2 inches open. The milk was in its dish. The world was perfect the way you only get it perfect when you bargain. And from the monitor, quiet, clear, smiling, the voice said, "Daddy." I sat up in bed. I looked at the crib. I saw my daughter sleep with her hand in a tiny fist, her thumb inside like a decision. I looked at the monitor and saw the gray picture of her. Still, I looked at the closet and saw nothing at all. "Daddy," the monitor said again. And then lower, the demon slipped under the word and looked out through it like a face at a window and said, in my own voice, "Daniel." I stood and crossed the room and lifted Nora and held her and said over and over, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," from the closet, grateful as a dog when you say the leash word, "Come." I walked to the door with my daughter in my arms and put my foot against the jamb and did not move. I said no. I said it out loud. I said it with my whole body. I said it in a way the house could understand. I shut the closet door. It didn't knock. It didn't scream. It didn't explode open and swallow us. It went quiet like a child who has learned something about the word no. Not obedience. Context. We moved the crib back to the nursery the next day. Felt like an act of trust or a dare. I left the closet door open by 2 inches and the light on. The milk dish stayed. The whisper returned to my name, regular as breath. 13 seconds, then silence, then 13. Sometimes it said, "Hungry." Sometimes, rarely, "Thank you." I never asked the Hays where they are and how their boy sleeps now. I don't want to know what the house taught them or what they taught it. I could tell you we moved. That would be easy. That would be the story. New house, new air, white walls that stay only walls. But we did not move. Houses come with you if they like you. You learn that fast. So we live by the rules we made for each other. We leave milk. We leave the door a little open at night. We speak softly after midnight. We don't say certain words out loud. We hold our daughter when the whisper asks us to, but not every time, not on command. We say no when it matters so the house knows who is father to whom. The monitor is still unplugged. We keep it on the dresser like a picture of a friend who talked too much. Sometimes, when the heat kicks on and the ducks tick, it breathes my name anyway. I look at the door, I look at my daughter, I say very softly, so the house can hear the shape of it and maybe grow used to it. No then, because I have learned the bargain matters. 2. Thank you. And the house, in the voice that began this, the voice that is not mine and never will be but now knows me the way a hand knows a rail in the dark, whispers my name over and over, forever if I let it, until I answer.